Exchange. As rubber hits the road, hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Memory.
Should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Watch it!
Everybody, welcome inside of the afternoon drive time exchange right here on your TT Radio. Coming off of the weekend and everything, hope that you guys had a really good one, and we're happy to be here with you. Of course, this is your drive time exchange with none other than our journalist extraordinaire, Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I am good, Sir Charles, and how was the weekend by you?
Actually, a lot of work. Yeah. You know,
station, right?
Yes, that is it. It's a lot of work where that was concerned. So I spent most of the weekend, seeing about that. One or two areas to relax, but mostly work.
All right, we're going to talk about the station in a moment during the program. But I am, as you know, we are happy to have with some of our colleagues in the far north.
Yes.
Chalo.
Yes, definitely. It's a real privilege to have
them. We are staying in the far north, and for a number of years, we have Von Martin, we have George Maraj, and we have Erickson Bernard. I'm sure the names at least are no strangers to you, Sir Charles.
No, actually, a lot of icons you have in between here.
Yeah. Fellas who have been outside in the cold north for many, many years doing their thing. Talking about Trinidad and Tobago, playing the music of Trinidad and Tobago, and interviewing significant individuals in the music and cultural sphere for many years. I'm going to ask them personally about themselves as we go along. But just to tell our listeners that we have Von Martin, who has been in the Washington area on this program. Von, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Tony. And thanks, Charles. Haven't seen you in a long time, man.
Yes, it has been a long time. I look forward when we can meet in person.
Yeah.
George Maraj, who has been even further north, Toronto in the freezing cold at times, playing the kaiso on soca. Yes, George?
Check your microphone, George.
I think you have to put on your microphone.
On mic. Unmute yourself, George.
Yeah, your microphone is muted.
How's that?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're getting
all right. Yeah.
Good now.
You're looking good, man.
Well, boy, Tony, what I tell you?
Something in the cold agreeing with you, boy.
Boy, all I can think about is being homesick for all you down there.
Yeah,
That will have me going.
that good man. I went in your territory recently with your friend Neil, and he pointed out to me where you and your brothers and family and etc. were from in the deep south. Well, not
San,
deep south, but San Fernando.
San Fernando. We were all born in San Fernando.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna ask you to talk about your work in Toronto or what you've been doing, etc. I just got two books from George. One, The Roots of Calypso. It's 1 and 2, and I haven't had time yet to get down to them, but I surely will. And Erickson Bernard, who's in the New York area, and he has been, I am sure, jamming the soca as we worked together many years ago at Radio Trinidad. And Eric, tell us about what you've been doing. Just give us a short insight, and then we're going to come back to you later on in the program.
Well, living here in New York, enjoying it all. Happy to see George and Vaughn again. Sir Charles, good afternoon to you. And I host the weekend wake up shows on teamsoca.com called Global Soca.
Okay, Global Soca. All right, so let's get on with it. And I have to give the senior amongst you, Vaughn, the first shot. Vaughn has been in the Washington, U.S. area for almost 50 years.
Yeah.
And Vaughn, tell us about the programs that you've been doing over the decades, really, which I had the good fortune to be on a couple of occasions. But tell our listeners something about the station and what you've been attempting.
All right, Tony, it's quite a bit, you know. I started with first WHOR, a fellow by the name of John Blake had a program there, and I started to work with John, and then I initiated a program of my own on one of the Pacifica stations here in Washington D.C. called WPFW, and actually I was the first person to play music on the air on stream. And that happened to be a song by Kalyan a long time ago, you know. But I've still been with WPFW, and it has certainly transformed me into an international broadcaster. First, the program on WPFW, it's a 3-hour radio magazine which plays Caribbean music, news, and interviews. I have a team of people who work with me. I have a news team, and I have an engineer who helps work me, and he's now at the moment co-producing with me, Brian Bernard. This has been going on for umpteen years. Because of the program, one of the ambassadors who I used to interview a lot invited me to come on and do something for them. And as a result of that, I ended up at the OAS, the Organization of American States, where I became their Caribbean broadcaster. And through that, I was able to learn the business of broadcasting and broadcast journalism, doing 2-minute clips and so on, and filing it into the Caribbean. So that ended up going all through all the islands of the Caribbean. That allowed me to interview scores of people, man. I mean, and amass a tremendous amount of archival material. As a result of that, I've interviewed some critical persons, non-politicians. I would say one that's a favorite of mine was Colin Powell, General Colin Powell. I've interviewed all the artists, Sparrow, Kitchener, Growling Tiger, name them. I've done an extensive amount of research work on the steel pan.
I know, Vaughn, that the general depended on you to get his share of Calypso music.
Right. I gave him a gift of 4 Sparrow CDs. He loved his Sparrow, man. So he enjoyed that kind of music, you know. So you know, it's a tremendous amount of work, and you know, it's to prepare. You know, you go through the music. I have amassed so many cassette tapes. I've done some wonderful documentaries. I've done a documentary which is special. It's called Caribbean History in Song, where I play the music that reflects the Caribbean history, calypso, reggae, and cadence music. And as a result of that, young people have come into my life. And now my daughter and Brian and they are helping me. My daughter set me up with a YouTube channel, she and Brian. And so we document all the stuff on the channel. We have a website, caribbeana.org, and you can find everything about me there. And as a result of all of that, I've ended up writing books. I've written a book called Voices of Pan Pioneers of Trinidad and Tobago. And I did another book, co-authored a book with Andrew Springer and others called A Comeback Home. And right now I'm working, my autobiography is worked on, and I'm also working on another book called Word Masters of Island Comedy. And that's a narrative of my relationship with the comedians of the Caribbean, people like Spangalang, Agitation, and all of these guys. So that one is coming out shortly.
So you brought some of the culture of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean to all of the Caribbean people who reside in the north. Yes.
Yes. It impacted. Yeah, definitely so. People look forward to the show every Saturday evening, and it's wonderful. I have to thank my family for giving me the support. My wife and my son and my daughter, and and so it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile doing.
Right. Okay, so we're gonna come back to the reach out from all three of you. The reach out to Caribbean people resident in your part of the world, and to find out from you how much this kind of reach out from home has meant to people in the north. So let's go to George Morat, who is a specialist in calypso archiving, collection. He's also a parandero. He has a side, and George, tell us all about this thing. How long you been doing it?
Well, good night, everybody, again.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here and to sit among you guys. I have been away from Trinidad for about 55 or 56 years, but I held on to my culture. I'm from San Fernando.
You still have a Trini accent, man.
Well, it can't change. It can't change. I had double temporary this morning.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, George.
Everything in my life is Trinidad and Tobago. Unlike Mr. Zavon Martin, they deal with all aspects of Caribbean music. I concentrate on calypso. Not even soca, not even chutney, soca, parang, calypso, because to me we are the land of calypso. And I find people abroad here, at least in Canada, come together and say, well, we love calypso. As a result, I have formed, since 1969, I've been away, 74. I started my research in 1980. And I'm pleased to say I probably have the only calypso research library around, where you can find out who came first or second in 1945, 47, the top 10. I've documented everything you could find in calypso, as how many blind calypsonians there are. People can tell you, oh, 5. Oh no, I got 15 documented. And you have the books, Tony. Like the Chinese calypsonians, maybe about 10 or 12. Nobody could pass 5. I help people with the calypso research. Attila the Hun grandchildren, Caressa, children, they want to know about their grandfather, the ancestors. They would like to know, and I am there to show them and teach them and educate them on how powerful these artists were in the past. The nowadays ones are great as well, but my research go from the turn of the century to 1980, when I really started. I stretched to 1990. But I tried to follow everything I could on calypso. As a matter of fact, right now on Facebook, I received a message from some Americans who were stranded on a ship called the SS Arkansas in 1943 that shipwrecked. Tony, you got the email I sent to you that they were shipwrecked on the Canary Islands going to French Guiana, and they landed up in Trinidad in the Caroni Swamp. Well, they thought it was the Caroni Swamp, but it's a swamp. And there was a calypso that was made on that event. And I want to know who would help me find out about that wreck in 1943. The calypso was in 1945, and I found out today that was the Golden Tiger.
Okay.
I sang the song called USS, something about the U-boat. I have to still find it and play it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that there are so many different aspects of calypso that I can tell, and I educate people. I have formed the Calypso Breakfast Line in Toronto. I have formed the Kaiso College in Toronto, the Trini Fest in Toronto here. Everything I do is for Trinidad and Tobago and for calypso. Every piece of
George,
yeah.
what have been your outlets? The other fellas have radio programs and so on. What have been your outlets for the Calypso in Toronto?
Email, telephone, Facebook. That's it. I went so far, as, to my knowledge, to publish 2 books on calypso as means of education that you have in front of you there. They are books that could be understood by everybody, the layman, the calypsonian, the dedicated person, and I'm proud to say that those books collectively sold 8,000 copies.
Okay.
And they are in the libraries of Trinidad and Tobago and in Toronto. Canada, to be exact.
George, have you been able to make a living out of this, or is this just something on the side that you do?
My heart for Trinidad and Tobago, my love for my country.
But you had to live, you had to eat, you had to pay your mortgage on your house and so on.
All that is done. I'm old now. I can just retire. I help people with calypso. I help musicians, researchers. I help everybody. Try to find what to do. No. I can't make a living out of this. I don't intend to. And even if I could, I want to divert every cent I have into the Calypso Museum that I want to form.
Okay.
And if I could, this is the front of the museum. It's called Calypso.
Okay.
And it won't be built here, it will be built in Trinidad. So I just want to highlight the work of all Calypsonians into that museum.
Right. I'm going to ask you in a moment after I hear from Eric, where this love for Calypso has come from. How were you grounded? Don't respond yet. Don't respond right. That's
okay.
Think about it now. We go to Eric St. Bernard, who, as I said, is well known as an announcer, a DJ. Sometimes he crosses over into journalism on Facebook, asking hard questions and concluding too, So, Eric, tell us about, I know you had come from New York and come down to Radio Trinidad, and then you went back. I don't know if Radio Trinidad was too sweet for you.
No, I actually think of myself as the most privileged and fortunate broadcaster. I left home as a teenager, influenced by Rennie Bishop, to come and study. And while studying media, I believe that I realized that Dave Elcock is the more, should I say, important person in the industry. Black Stalin and Gypsy were the ones who recommended Dave Elcock to hire me at 105 based on the work I was doing in college radio with Calypso and Steelpan. When I got home, I had, I guess, the greatest education and privilege to work with people like yourself, Tony, Dominic, Kali, Passad, Barbara, Soon, Selma, E, Holly Thomas, Dave Elcock, Phil Simmons. It couldn't get any better than that. To say that you get a chance to sit down in the same space with these greats who taught you a lot. So when I came back to New York,
and don't forget Neil Giuseppe, who headed the whole station.
We're going to get to Neil Giuseppe because later on I'll make an argument that he was ahead of his time.
Okay.
So keep that thought there, right? So when I came back to New York after a while to get back onto radio, Kenny Phillips called me and asked if I can do some remote broadcast from New York. Because when I came home for Ken Fillmore's funeral, I told them they were wrong by making the argument that Fillmore learned arrangement in Trinidad. He did not. He learned it right here in Brooklyn. People like Hugh Lloyd and they were unaware as to what's happening with all these things in New York. So Kenny said, listen, you need to do the show. So based on what I was see happening in the industry, I decided to call the show Globally Whack because I realized that the soca music was having impact across the world. Goose eventually got me to come across the Team Soca, which is a much more vibrant platform, meeting listeners across the
Eric, just for those people who may not know who the Goose is, tell them.
Ian the Goose Eligor is one of those experienced broadcasters coming out of Trinidad. He used to do the drive time. We were actually competitors in Trinidad. I'm at 105 and he's at 100. And now here we are, always maintain a good friendship. So he said to me, look, this station, it has mostly DJs, but he think they need a qualified broadcaster to do the weekend mornings because I would bring more to the table. And I took up the offer, and it has been one of the most beautiful, rewarding, informative decisions that I have benefited from because it led to me, because unlike radio where you have these phone calls, these online station is mostly chat. So I end up with this wonderful group of people, about 14 of them in all, who are educators, who is from Dominica, who is from St. Lucia. And by chance, this brother out of Belize, Calvin, and his wife started a little chat with about the 14 of us who were regulars listening. And that has allowed me to get what Vaughn Martin has been paid for, which is a staff of producers and engineers and all these people. So I have all these folks who are passionate from different parts of the Caribbean, Dr. Amala Lunchon, Dr. D, who all now do what I refer to as those little features Vaughn talked about. As you guys would know, Tony, minute and a half, 2 long features. We just concluded, for example, mental health awareness. This girl they call Susan Stout did what I believe is award-winning work every week doing a 2-minute feature on mental health. So soca is the basis, but as my teacher Dave Elcock would have taught me, don't make it a jukebox. That is the philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Meaning what?
Well, Dave always argued that a jukebox, for those who are old enough to know where you're going, just pay the money, hear music. He was like
25 cents in the
right. So he was like, the music draws the audience, but you must offer some substance. So you make sure and have something of substance to offer in between the music, a 2-minute, 3-minute feature. Like Dave Elcock was so ahead of his time also too, because right now today's radio, where you have 8 and 5 people doing a show, Dave alone did the humor and the voice and these things, right? So what I do, I would say I kind of like do Dave Elcock light. I don't have that kind of talent, so I find different people to bring different things, and of course, social media gives you so much information that you can pull clips from and audio clips from to get humor. So we do a magazine to an extent, but I would say it's heavy on the music to keep the interest of that large, diverse audience that we deal with.
Right. I'm going to come to you, all of you, in a moment to ask you about the reaction that you've got over the decades, really, from Trinidadians, from West Indians who are in the cool, and perhaps, as Maestro say, what's it when the, I don't remember the name of the song, but Trini's gone wild. Fiery. What has it meant to the listeners and the viewers and people who have come to parties like George Maraj has had? I've seen video of the Parang side at Christmas, and people must feel that they're back home. What has it meant? Vaughn, starting with you.
It has been tremendous. For example, the station that I'm on now, WPFW, is a non-commercial radio station. It's a jazz and what we call jazz extensions. And so it exists on monies donated by the listeners. So people have to call in and make a contribution. And our program is so popular. We raise a lot of money every Saturday. Our goal is usually $850, and we raise $2,000 easy because people see and get a feel for what we do, and they appreciate it. So they demonstrate by giving money, donating money to the station.
Do people interact with your presenters, yourself and your presenters, call in and chat and so on?
Yes, 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 yes. They call, they will talk to us and thank us for what we're doing and so on. If I go out to a function, I used to go to parties and so on, and they will meet me and they will accost me and talk to me, tell me this and that and the other. And it's a marvelous way. People need information disseminated. They will call and give me information because we have what we call a community calendar. So we'll put the information where the feds are, where the doctors coming out, all those kinds of things. Put it in a module and air it then. So
Right. What about information from home? People in Antigua, wherever, want to know what's happening at home.
Well, again, same situation. I mean, people, when we go to Trinidad, people and they identify with us, they react to us they positively. They like what we do. In fact, I was in another station for supposedly half hour. It ended up being in an hour, talking about basically just that. Doing the programming, doing the news, doing the information, the interviews, the various people, and so forth. And it is just fantastic. I have a thing I call educate, entertain, and enlighten. 3 E's, because it embodies everything that we chose to do and want to do in order to carry out our mission.
Hey, Vaughn,
Yeah.
there's this concept now that they talked about. I just want to piggyback on what you're saying, called infotainment.
Yes.
In so many words, is what's required now in order to get entertainment to the masses.
Right. That's I have to depend on the young ones for the computer business. I mean, I don't go in the station anymore. It's Zoom, and it's just like they're live, and this is fantastic. Yeah.
George Moraj,
Yes,
I
sir.
know George has a Paran side. What? El Quechos.
Los cachorros asos.
Yeah, what the reach out? What has the reach out meant to people in Toronto? How far does this signal go beyond Toronto when you're doing all of these shows and so on?
Well, first to begin to educate the people on Parang, I had to form the band and let them know that it could switch to Latin, Colombian. We ever, people think it's Latin music, but actually I had to explain to everybody on the mic what is Parang, what is Lewa at the end of the Parang season, and I formed a calypso band called Crab and Callaloo, which we play out. We play Steel Band Clash and Mastife and Extempo and everything. And we don't have an audience as such born Canadians. We got people who left Trinidad 50, 60 years ago, not knowing anything about Calypso. And you can see them, Gina and Dinah, and they're singing away the old time Calypso. We don't play soca as such, right? But we play the old time Calypso where people could understand and people remember the songs. And all of our free fets that we play out, because we don't charge any money. Well, back to you, we should be, but we're not charging.
Right.
They just enjoy themselves, and they come back, and it's always filled with people.
Yeah. And what does it mean to Trinis who migrated a long time ago
Oh, they come
Canada?
back all the time. They want us to record. They want us to buy whatever we have. Sometimes they bring Pancha Crema, they bring black cake, they bring Polori into the restaurant as make the atmosphere a real Trini atmosphere. They can't wait, and we play every weekend.
How do you feel? You and your family feel when all these Trinis come in the place and so on?
Why, look, no greater feeling for me to see a Trini and hear people talking about our culture. the Antiguan people, the Grenadian people, everybody talking like Chinese, and oh, we know that song from back home, and we know this, we know that. It's a great feeling, especially when they get up to dance.
They still remember the steps.
Man, we can't forget nothing. That's like the accent. We can't forget anything.
That's
We
inbuilt
talk,
into the system.
yeah. Well, as you all know, I was born in a Hindu family. My mother and father were pundits.
Mhm.
Strange enough. But my mother,
George, don't go on for that. I want that in a special thing.
all
I
right,
want
all
to
right.
know the groundings of your calypso
Okay,
loving,
all right.
more so that you didn't come out of that kind of background. Let me go to Eric to talk about
Okay.
how people in the US in the your station, does it go beyond the New York area when it
Yeah,
comes?
that's the beauty of being online. If I were to look at the numbers, we got like about maybe 50,000 listeners across the world. We have listeners. There's one of my inner circle people named Lisa out of Norway. She's a Chinese Indian Trinidadian living in Norway forever, and she knows some music, etc. People in France, Germany, of course, throughout the North America, Canada, all over. Like I said before, there's no longer a phone call. The only phone calls is for interviews, but on the chat, people come in there all the time from Antigua. But our audience, I would say the average age of our audience would be about 40 years old. And that's because our audience are the ones who you would have seen in Orlando 2 weeks ago, 20,000 strong for the Kess performance, and the ones who would go to Caribana, the ones who would be in New York for Labor Day, the ones who would come home to Carnival in Trinidad, the ones who go to Grenada Carnival. So I think I have gone beyond the Trinidad of it and deal
Right.
with it on the wider, because I made an argument this week on the air just by thing is that soca music and producers have done what the politicians have not been able to do, because there are about 2,000 songs right now out of St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Barbados, Grenada for their carnivals, right? And you would find most of the recordings a Trinidadian producer working with a Bajan, a Sinvention working with a Trinidadian, lyrical doing things with Alison Hines. So the music itself has gone beyond. In fact, a great example, I went to a show about 2 years ago. It would have been in Atlantic City, huge on the beach there. Kess one night, Marshall the next night. It had maybe about 25,000 people in this place. And in talking, because this is the part of become a broadcaster, you need to get information, right? And there were these young people, they call me uncle, who were of Haitian heritage, but their father is a Vincentian and their mother is a Haitian. And so you have this generation now who would be made up of people who, if you have their Thanksgiving dinner, they would have a cousin from Grenada, aunt from St. Vincent, a thing from Trinidad. So the soca music is what binds them all together. And one of the things I talk about, or I learned about, soca and the diaspora, Kes made a point that Trinidad live in its own little world and is not aware of all these fantastic things happening beyond their shores with the music. Is that soca requires people to have disposable income. You can't just pick up and go to Barbados Carnival and enjoy yourself, right? And if the average person doing, in so many words, two or three of these carnivals and these fetes, and a lot of these young people are lawyers and teachers and economists and engineers, and even if a person is working in the New York City metro system, that's 100 and something thousand a year income that person is making. So soca carnival is really something that requires money. But let me quote Mia Motley, who said that we give the world, we never created bomb or sent man to the moon, but we gave them a carnival, the world's happiest festival, and we gave the world's happiest music. So there is a whole energy happening. It's going beyond our borders. It's reaching people who are non-West Indians. And to me, it's like Trinidad don't have a clue as to all these great things happening beyond their borders with the music.
Right, that's great, and that's why I've invited you fellas to tell tell us all about it. Tell us about what is happening. Just to indicate to our listeners that we are doing something this afternoon away from the politics and the crime and all of that tralala. Talking about people who have been in the north for up to, in the instance of one, Martin, almost 50 years. George Maraj, Erickson Bernard, all of these people who, in their different ways, reach out with the culture from home. And so we are talking with all of them. I asked each one of them to give me an experience, a recorded experience of something that they did, something that they encountered. I don't know who, Vaughn, you want to start us off with something that you said you have to tell Sir Charles which one of the pieces that you want to hear, so you can pull it up and you can hear it and then you can tell us all about it. Vaughn.
Well, I think it's a song by All Rounder. Um, it's wonderful being able to come home and to meet people like All Rounder and embodied into his family, his daughters and his wife, and finding out that it's the wife who writes the music for all of them, you know, and so it's amazing to see how this culture is embodied by families. It isn't just only the man you're seeing on stage or there, but by families around him that gives this essence out, you know.
Yes. So which one of the pieces, what is it, Mark, so Charles can play it?
Charles, let me,
I'm not changing my name. Is that it?
let me see. And yeah, not right. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I'm
everything.
not changing my name.
Nice.
I'm not changing my name. Them women love my name. I love my name. They could say what they want. Because he name Mr. Small, he want me change my name. Going to renew my permit. Me and my three brothers. You mightn't believe it. That day we get hers. A woman security. They call in cheaper. Tell me, do my God, is your name that they laughing at? Andrew Wood. Leo Wood. She gone back again, all in Clifton Wood. I stand up in front of she, hear what she telling me. Not to make no row, or longer Wood will go in just now, baby.
That's the wrong there. I'm not changing my name. Ah,
Numalanton at his very best.
Vaughn, why this piece?
Well, I enjoy. Listen, it brings me back to my encounter with All Rounder in my earlier days. When I used to do shows at Listen Auditorium and so on, I had All Rounder perform for me and so on. Pretender, a group of them come up and performed, and somebody tried to rob me in backstage, and if it wasn't for All Rounder and they took care of the individual, and then All Rounder surrounded me with praise, you know, and I mean it's amazing. It was unbelievable, but after that he and I became good friends. And he brought me home and met his family and so forth, you know. And then I interviewed his daughter. And since then, I've always had them on my program, you know. So again, the music and the cultural expressions embody relationships amongst people, and that's all part of it, you know, all part of their lives, you know.
Sweet music with plenty de blata, as Eric said.
Yes, yeah.
I remember being in Puerto Rico at a tourism conference, and there were fellas, Calypsonians, Trinidadian Calypsonians, not people of any known Calypso, fellas with a guitar singing and so on. And one fella started singing Soulfish, and there was some, white foreign women right there, and some Trinidad and Caribbean people who were pushing me to explain to them what the Soulfish is. They say, yeah, they say he's a Trini, you are text. Well, boy, I back out of that because how am I going to explain that to them? So it's great. Yes, that's a wonderful piece there. Eric, do you have a piece that you want to Charles?
Yeah, I would probably go with the piece Charles on Etienne Charles.
Yes.
About a 2-minute interview piece, and if you could conclude it with a piece of his song Pecan. Why Etienne? This interview was done just Saturday going there. Etienne is one of the most renowned jazz players in the world. And to me, what he has done over the last 4 years is to bring the music back into calypso and soca music. He works with Kes, he works with boys, he works with a fair amount of them, but he's producing a show for free at Lincoln Center Courtyard on the 14th. And on that show, he is going to do the Road March Concert 3, where they're doing all different road marches. I know he has Short Shirt from Antigua there, Super Blue, Terry Lyons, etc. But I think what was important is that we normally hear at home the criticism about what's happening with the music. It's no good, it's no good. I want you to hear what Etienne has to say about soca music, because the truth is, Tony, 90% of the soca are not heard in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. So Charles?
Okay.
Give me your assessment of soca music as you are hearing it today, and what you would recommend, generally speaking, for us to do for soca music to probably get to the next level.
There's a couple of things. One, I like what I'm hearing. There's some very clever producers on the scene right now, and I'm even starting to hear brass has started to come back into, and by brass I mean actual instruments being recorded. It's something Lester and I talked about years ago when I had my first year. First year I had my carnival band, rhythm, brass, and bass. And we talked about it last time. What caused the change? Because you definitely hear a dip in the musicality in soca, and he attested it to when they stopped recording a lot of the music in New York and in the studios in Trinidad, and they started using synthesizers. But I see that there's this renaissance now of coming back to a lot of live music, like Voice. Voice, who works with a great producer, Nikolai Green, who's a great producer. Kyle Phillips is using a lot of live music, live instruments. We did that tune you're listening to, Picong. That's the tune I did with Kyle Phillips.
That tune back, boy.
Yeah, Kyle Peters is a guitarist he's actually coming up for the Road March show. Tano is another great producer. He's the guy that did DNA, and he did Coco T, and he's done all these really big hits already for Kes and for Mikhail Teja. And these guys are using live instruments, and I think one of the main things is that we keep live music alive, right? And so one thing I ask people to do is always support live music, figure out ways to support live music, and also figure out ways to see that young people get exposed to live music, because otherwise they don't know it exists.
All right. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, you know, Eric, what I hear in that is music on the road, recorded music going back to the 60s and 70s. I don't know if he set out to capture that, but I hear Joey Lewis and Manu Maslin and these fellas in the music.
He
Yes.
came
Yes?
from that, but if I could also add, Voice did a sample of Kitchener's Brooklyn Baby, right? Now, what's her name? Patricia Roberts and Nelson did a nice piece together. So there was so much music, as he said about the Renaissance, going back to the drums and things that are happening. People like M1, you might not even know who he is. This guy is doing fantastic work. Putain and these guys and them, right?
Right.
Again, the heartbreaking part of it, it's not happening in Trinidad because it's not unusual to be on a boat ride this summer on the Hudson to hear a DJ go from Scrunter Oil in the Coil to this song here by A.T. and Charles, and then to go with a voice and a Marshall or whatever. So I think, the trouble is a Trinidad problem.
Mm. But I thought we were leading you fellas. I didn't know that you fellas brave enough to
I
take
have
over.
I have often argued, not now, because I, was raised in Brooklyn here and came home. I didn't learn nothing about calypso and soca at home before I left. I learned it all in Brooklyn. I learned about spoiler and cipher and all them. So when I went back home, people assume I was as old as Dave Elcock and these guys because I learned in Brooklyn all this stuff here, right? So Brooklyn has always been to me the mecca of soca simply because when I arrived here as a teenager, it's the first time in my life I would have gone to dances and hear from the very first song to the very last song, nothing but calypso and soca music. And it still exists. And there's a young generation there who have the same desire, love, and passion for the music.
How
So
do you explain that, Eric?
that's a question maybe for the someone who is in a higher pay grade than I to discuss. I can only say what I experience and what I know and what exists. And that's why I said earlier to you that Neil Giuseppe was ahead of his time. Because if you had a tempo now where you have access to the world via media and internet and things like that, because the audience has always been for the diaspora.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'll give you this joke. I was telling Goose. Goose plays 100% soca now. So too does Madman Maddie. So too does Papa Rocky. And all these guys who, when they were home, I laugh at them. They weren't doing that. But when they came to Brooklyn, in order to survive, bro, you better play calypso and soca music within the diaspora.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it also goes to I think to the audience that you're playing to. With us here in the area where we have a multi-island audience, we have to cater to some of the other forms, other peoples too. You have Barbados, you have Guyana, and all of these.
Yeah, well, Vaughn, I think just put you for a second there, right? If I
Yeah,
send you my last Saturday's playlist,
yeah,
it would be, I would say, 90% small island. You know why?
yeah,
Because they're the ones putting out the music now. And
yeah.
like I explained, our audience is made up of all these, different
Right,
folks all
right,
around. So the
right.
music from Barbados, St. Vincent. In fact, right now, I will say to you, the best music is
Yeah,
coming out of St. Vincent. They changed their drum pattern, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I discovered Dominica for the first time with their music.
yeah,
And
yeah,
their carnivals is same time with ours. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
listeners said to me, yo, go Dominica.
yeah,
And when I
yeah,
went Carnival Dominica, and I'm like, they say Trinidad, I said, yeah.
yeah.
They still have Last Lap with live bands on the road, dude.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
they still are not restricted
And
from
it's
enjoying the carnival.
yeah, yeah. But I'm familiar with Dominica because I did my research on cadence music, and I mean the same thing what you're saying, man. The forms are still there, and people embody them, and present them. I mean, people like Julie Morillo and Ophelia Marie, and they take the music form and express it, re-express it.
Uh,
But I tell you, it's just fantastic, man.
George Maraj, how you contribute to this discussion, the reaction of your audiences that you play to, that you engage.
So all I can tell you is Caribana over here. They got 17 bands over here coming down on the parade route, and they all play calypso, soca music, and the crowd behind the bands are all second and third generation West Indians. And at one time they had put a band on.
Do they, George? Do they have the movements?
They got everything.
They know how to move on thing. All right.
They got, believe me, it's a pleasure to stand up at this time and watch them and say, look at that. And they're dragging the people, their friends, the Filipino friends and the
White Canadians
friends inside too. And 17 bands, and every band has about 3,000 or 4,000 people.
Yeah.
That's very, very, very big. And they have to streamline a lot of competitors into the parade. The steel pans are coming down the other side too. So it's two different things. There's only calypso and soca music playing.
Yeah.
And you should see the people, Tony. I was surprised, very, very surprised to see how they dance. They chip good.
They have the thing.
The David Dog Pack. Because, for instance, my granddaughters, they all play pan. And most of the pan they like is the calypso. They study the pan, the road march, they study everything. So the generation, my daughter's generation and my granddaughter's generation, they're all into the calypso and pan.
How do they learn these things? These second and third generation West Indians, they go to school or it's in their blood? What's the story? Tell me.
I think it's in the blood from their parents and their grandparents.
Yeah.
They follow them. They got something to hold on to, their culture. Just hold on to the identity.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
We are West Indians. We are West Indians. My wife is Guyanese, but you know what? People think she's Trinidadian.
Yeah.
Because she could boast that she pulled pan for Fontclair down in San Fernando. Yeah. You know, like my whole family.
Vaughn and Eric. You know how to wine good and chip and so on? Tell me.
But my daughter, she's born here, but I swear she's a Trinidadian. You know, I mean, my company, I have a non-profit company, Caribbeana Communications Incorporated. She set up the website, and I mean, she have me on YouTube channel. I mean, it is just fantastic to see how the young people, you know, my engineer, Brian Bernard, my nephew, I mean, you swear he born in Trinidad, but no, you know, and the culture is in him. You know, he picks the music every, you know, like we were listening to Etienne Charles. We have one of the Etienne's music there on the thing called, I think it's Old School. But Etienne is just fantastic to see how he does his expressions, you know, and just grabs people and brings them into his fold, man. Fantastic.
Chalo, if you have that piece, what's the name of it, Vaughn?
Old School.
Old School. school. Yeah.
Yeah, Charlo, good music there, man.
Excellent music and instruments are having a conversation there, you know.
Yeah. What the music and everything reminds me of the calypso in the cold and coming back home. You know, some Chinese when they land up at Piaco and they still don't have their Trinidad passport, but they have a U.S. passport. And the immigration officer want to give them 2 weeks to say that's getting wild, you know. My sister is one of them. She's been there for 50 odd years, and she when she doesn't bring her Trinidad passport and they tell her that she only have 2 weeks, she just carry on, man. You know, Trinidad's coming back home. That music reminds me of Trinidad's. Yes, Eric?
Yeah, it certainly does. But you were asking the question about how these young people get into it, right? Labor Day in Brooklyn is over 50 years old, and there is Kiddies Carnival every Saturday morning with hundreds upon hundreds of kids
Okay.
from since the age of 2 all the way until they're like about 18 playing in those bands. We would probably have in the New York area here maybe at least 15 school steel bands with kids, full ensembles, and all these schools they have bands being played, etc. And as far as I know, from since small, in the summertime, especially where you have all these outdoor events, like for example, a thing in Brooklyn here that happens is like every island has a day, St. Vincent Day, Grenada Day, Trinidad Day, well, no. Trinidad don't have no day. You have Mover Day, Tunapuna Day, Laventil Day, Belmont Day. So each island has a day. Trini have about 10 days for each, wherever. And it's like a picnic, and you take the kids out, and when you go with soca music playing, they see the little children dancing, and they have steel pan there and things like that. So for my time in the US, it has always been something that is there. Like I said to you, as a teenager, I'm on bus rides going to Wayne Park, 20 buses long, only West Indians. And my uncle Ralphie, he box and he playing spoiler and them boys and them. That's how I learned that, So New York in particular, and the cool thing is that it's now happening in Florida. It's now happening in Virginia has a carnival going on now too. Carolina has a carnival going on now too. Atlanta has a carnival going on now too. So it's like spreading out and things are happening. And as people in the New York area get to the stage where they're ready to retire, in fact, the person who started the carnival in Atlanta is a guy named Monroe, Cutie Monroe, who left New York and went down, there. People moved to what you call it, to Carolina. So as far as I know, and I think Vaughn is some years ago, Angela Fox had given me the number of, there are about 300 Trinidad style carnivals around the world.
Yeah.
Tell you, for example, that people out of Germany,
Right.
I was shocked to hear that in a carnival in Germany, it's what, 10 people or something? When the man sent me the video, a bunch of little white girls and things having a time in the carnival. There's a soca fest that happens in Norway, happens in Japan. People would leave here, New York DJs just go to Japan and Norway and Switzerland has a huge weekend of a soca festival. So again, back to voice, back to Kes. Trinidad lives in this silo and is unaware as to what's happening with the music around the world.
George, what is happening in Toronto, man?
Tony, can I just ask a question before you
Sure.
move up? Because this conversation, is interesting to me in so many different ways. But as they're talking about the younger people, and Mr. Maraj spoke about the second and third generation, and Eric and Vaughn is now talking about, the different carnivals and that generation grew up in it, going to all the different carnivals, moving around. What is it like for these individuals after each one of these carnivals? So we love this stuff. We're in Brooklyn, or we're in London, we're in Canada. But after that, do these individuals who are loving the carnival go on or go to other things after that, or they stay with the music and the carnival?
From my experience, they stay with it. It's part of their life. That's what they do. That's what they enjoy. In fact, I've heard many people say to you, this is a funny thing they would say, if you don't like soca, I can't date you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
George,
band
go ahead.
leaders in Toronto save the costumes. They are in the stores. Some of them are in the big stores downtown on Yonge Street as a display. They sell them out. They also participate in the Cayman Islands Carnival. They go to other carnivals around the world with their costumes.
Mhm.
So it's like a year-round stuff for them. That's it answers to Charles' question. Yes, they start to prepare from the very next day. I guess they do that in Brooklyn and Washington too. They
Yeah,
start the next day.
yeah,
Okay.
Let me ask a related question to all of you, and this is related to what Sir Charles asked a moment ago. Is there financial, economic benefit from all of these festivals and activities, and who are the people who make best use of those financial and economic possibilities?
But
uh,
I could talk about Toronto.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, there are grants that are given to band leaders. They are given to a group called the FMC, Festival Management Committee, and they distribute it to the Calypsonians, the Pan, the Mass, the Junior Carnival, and so on. Supposedly, I don't know. That's what we're supposed to do. And they make money from the costumes because every costume they sold is about about $500 Canadian, and they have to be making money because the warehouses are huge. And as I said, people like Louis Saldina and these people, they don't have to work again. They just make
Okay,
enough money
so
for the
it's
carnival.
Trinidadians and West Indians making the financial benefit.
Exactly. Yes. I know
Eric,
about one band leader who rent out his place all year round for fetes and shows and so on.
Vaughn, you wanted to say something.
now in our case, yeah, I think the people who benefit are the business community, the businessmen on the strip where the carnival parades, they would benefit from it. The band leader, he may benefit some, but not, I mean, considering his expenditure on producing the activity. So, but again, the corporate individuals, they benefit because they have to give monies to either band leaders or FET users or so forth, you know.
Yes.
And
So
so
that's a question I wanted to ask Vaughn. Do they contribute in any way to the festivals and to those people who make the festivals from their profits?
I I don't think so. You know, I haven't seen anyone who has done it. I mean, the guys, the band leaders, I like Jackie and Associates, and he puts out a band every year. He has to get his own money, raise his own money to do his carnival, his parade. You know, but when the parade is going down, let's say the main street, the people who are really benefiting is the businessmen who are selling stuff off of the crowds that are in attendance, you know. So it's comparative. I don't think it's a big sort of money maker as people may want to express it to be.
Rick?
My experience is if I take it back to the 80s where you had groups like Coffee Boys, Hawks,
Right,
Burkeet, Sesame Flyers, etc. These were organizations
right.
with 15 and 10 people involved taking the carnival on the streets. In fact, they were the ones who kind of started Miami Carnival to an extent too. It has changed now to a new generation, most of them born right here, bringing their mass bands, doing the feds, doing the promotions. They don't lose money because if you follow Instagram, you hear all the comments after about going get a costume on time, and now they have become business people. So it's because they will have mass bands in New York, Toronto. They would also go to Florida, and they
Baltimore.
collaborate with some of the designers in Trinidad, but they handle North America exclusively in most cases. The West Indian American Day Carnival Association, they would get grants from the state and the city to put on the massive Labor Day event as we know it. The only area where I think there's a real struggle is in the area of the pan. Not the pan in school, because there are two festivals for school children that happens in the summer that the schools come out with their bands and play. The regular bands and them, and the trouble is finding location. If you appreciate New York City and how difficult it is to have space, because any space that is 30 by 40 that is open is good for a couple of $1 million to throw a building one, two, three, and get income. So the struggle for the steel bands in particular here is the getting location. But I have interviewed the president of Trinbago, USA, and he would argue that some of the best pan players would be right here in Brooklyn because they start from small coming out, is where this guy came and fine-tuned himself, so to speak. Was his name Vaughn? The popular one that we all listen, Dane Galston, fine-tuned
Yes.
himself living here.
Yeah.
We have, I can tell you about maybe 50, 60 young people get full scholarships to universities as pan players. My cousin is one of them. Kasim Steel Orchestra and all these areas. I know before Ellie Manet died, he had a chair in Virginia where they do pan.
West Virginia.
Right. Then you have Liam Teague, who is out in Chicago, running two pan programs in that college. There's in North Carolina, there's in Ohio also too. So I know for a fact that a number of these young people who can play pan, and once they fulfill their academic requirements, the schools actually have steel bands and they want these players. And once you have the GPA they're looking for, they will pull you in full scholarship and be part of the steel pan ensemble.
Right. What I'm trying to get at, gentlemen, and you've been saying part of it, is Trinidad, the artists, the promoters, etc., the creators of the mass, the creators of the pan and the calypso and so on, oftentimes, and I feel it even here in Trinidad, perhaps even more so in Trinidad, that they are not the ones who really benefit fully from the talent, the creative talent that they put on. Other people have come and run with it. For instance, the manufacturers, the sellers in Trinidad and Tobago, those are the people who make big money, fella pushing pan or beating pan on, 2 months, 3 months before Carnival and on the road. Yeah, at the end of the season, you get $2,000 and so on. And, other people run away with the profits. So I'm wondering if that is the same kind of thing that is happening perhaps in Toronto, George.
I think personally, as a former band leader myself, because I was one for 4 years, if I have to continue, let's say Esadina, 28, 29 years, you got to be making some money somewhere. All these band leaders are 18 years old, 16 years old, 14 years old, 27 years old. So I would think, yes, they are making money. They could be making money. And as for the vending coming down on the parade, as Von Martin said, no. We have only West Indian markets because our parade is different. It's on the lake shore where there are no other stores.
Right.
But West Indian, we call it the marketplace. So anybody who makes money on that day vending are West Indian people.
Von?
But I mean, they make a little money, but I don't think it's money, the kind of money that, the corporate, the big boys would engage in. They don't make it, Yeah, they make some money, I mean, Baltimore Carnival is coming up, and, Chanty will get a little bucket by the side of the road and, sell a little sodas and little drinks and that kind of stuff. I mean, the dice, they're making money. But the real, like you were saying, Tony, that is the corporate people who are the head of this structure. They are the ones that making the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have to learn that in Trinidad and indeed elsewhere. All right.
Before you go on, I just wanted to. I'm not hearing the role of government in all of this. I mean, I kept asking these questions I would pose to Angela. the role of government. I mean,
And Vaughn, that's where you and I could have a serious debate because I believe government has been the problem.
I agree. That,
You know, the Calypso tents were doing fine until government put money in them as opposed to making them market driven. And to me, that is what I have seen in New York here. Tony
yeah,
asked the case. Yes, they are making money. Vaughn, unlike you in Toronto, the Labor Day Strip, Eastern Parkway, all the vendors, they are Caribbean people selling in their little booths. So that's where the commerce kind of take place. The hotel's a different story. But as
right.
far as the commerce among the mom and pop, they benefit from Labor Day. And the promoters, like we talk about, you know, they don't get government funding, so they are doing business as investors. So you can't force and tell them, oh, you need to have Terry Lyons. They, as investors, say, well, I want Mikel Teja and I want Voice because they are working on the demand and side of the business. And therein come the business. I honestly believe the role of government should be to support in Trinidad, at least pan, where that's unique
Yeah,
to Trinidad. Nowhere else in the world you could find bands of 100, 200 people, and how to get a promoter to hire that is a difficult thing. But that's unique to us. But I honestly believe that government need to stay out of the soca, stay out of the mass, and just focus on pan and traditional mass. Because what I have seen, and George, you would know it in Toronto, we would know it in the UK, do it in New York, the major centers, they are all doing well because those promoters putting on those events are market driven.
Okay, gentlemen, we want to cross into a little bit of the music. Who has something that you want to play? Interview, a piece of music, anything. You tell
I sent
Charles.
down some, Tony. I sent down some.
Sorry?
I sent down 3 songs. You could choose
Okay,
one.
Chalo, have you got them?
Yeah, I have them.
Right, play something from George, man.
Yeah, I go with King Solomon. You know, I go with vintage.
That is Calypso.
No,
Uh,
Miss Santa.
King Solomon Santa Tifa, big man from St. James.
Yeah,
And time like a cow in Mova.
yeah, you know, I go with the vintage.
Yeah.
I
I like- You know, when I sometimes teach young reporters and I play Santa and I go through the song and I say, if I could compose something like that,
Why?
I feeling happy. The man from start to finish, he tell a whole story there.
A whole story. And we have another one too, the flip side, but we will go to that now.
Yeah.
But this
Yes.
one,
so-
if the chance could find it.
well, what I have from you, which I've played a couple of them before, which is the All Rounder and the
No,
Etienne
no,
Child.
sorry,
Only from me.
Chalo, that's the wrong person. This is George Maraj. He's supposed to have sent you some music.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I got some stuff from Eric, and I got some stuff from the last of the stuff that you have made. I don't have. I don't think I collected Mr. Mirage stuff.
Oh, you didn't know? Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You
Is
got
it any-
one.
Tony,
But I
Yeah.
have some stuff for Eric, so Eric, you could, you know.
can I engage you in a particular song?
So, sorry, Eric. Before you go on, what you can do, Charles, I'm sure that you can find Santa by King Solomon, so that you can line that up. For when
I
you
will look
finish
for it.
with
I would
Eric,
look for it.
We
Yeah.
could come back to that.
But go ahead, talk to
Alright,
Eric in the
goes.
meantime.
All right. So yes, go ahead, Eric.
2 years, part of the discourse we have had within global soca that I find to be really fascinating is the involvement of the French Creole part of our culture that was never really brought out there. And there's a lot of discussion within the French Creole islands and them about their contribution to Calypso. And like I said, I learned from a lot of you guys. Andy Johnson said to me one time that Trinidad is a Spanish territory, French culture, English laws, and American influence. And we started to learn about Creole and things like that. There's an interview there from one Gordon Henderson who talks about the role of Creole in the development of Calypso, and he recorded a song called Calypso that is being discussed on a larger platform all around. So I just think that this discussion here about the diaspora, about us coming together, I find us a fitting piece to hear and to listen to, and I'd love to get your opinion, Tony, because you're one of the people who knows the culture, knows the thing, and I learned from you. But I think hearing from you, from that end of view, I would love to hear.
Right.
Tony, is this song Miss Santa?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay, I got that. Okay.
Not, right.
Exit.
Good morning, Miss Santa, living here. Yes, yes, it's me. Well, a lady from St. James report to me that you teach she man from she. And as a police, it's my bounden duty to charge you for larceny. You see, Santa keep a big man from St. James and time like a going mover. Sun and rain, wetting the man and he can't get away, poor fella. The case she plead guilty and everything was easy. She said I rarely pick up this man last Friday, as he said he ain't got nobody. But when I find out he's so stupid, after the room he should have gone already. You see, she really deep this big man from St. James and time like a going mover. Sun and rain, wetting the man and he can't get away, poor fella. The magistrate asked the man what he have to say before passing sentence on Santa. He says Santa told me I have a light on me and come up move and she would bathe me. After the bath she gave me a boot and from then I don't know my head from my foot. You see, she really deep this big man from St. James and time like a going mover. Sun and rain, wetting the man and he can't get away, poor fella.
Yeah, man. All right.
Georgia is a powerful woman, boy.
You say Picasso?
Yeah. She said she tied the man there, so stupid. She tied him, but he can't get away at all.
But look, the best art form in the world for me is Kaiso. Kaiso, there. Best art form.
A beautiful composition, man.
Beautiful. Vivital here, the other one next time you play it, called Gibraltar. No
Gibraltar. Okay. Tell Sharon the name of it and let's see if you can find it.
Snow Cone.
Snow Cone is the name of the song.
Yes.
By Gibraltar.
The singer is Mighty Gibraltar.
All right. I'm going to look for it for you.
Let him find that.
Yeah,
I wanted to say something just now.
Yeah, I was asking him to play the clip from Gordon Henderson and the song Calypso, and to get both you and Vaughn and George point of view, because George being a Calypso researcher, this is right up his alley about Calypso's development and where it started. And this is the point of view that comes out of the Creole world when it comes to Calypso.
Yes.
So the clip is by Gordon Henderson.
So tell us now about the connection between Calypso music as you know it and the Creole language or the French Creole population and Calypso. Make the connection there for us, because Calypso, as far as I know, was recorded up until the late 1900s in Creole.
Yes. So I am saying in the song and that Trinidad is paramount. As a matter of fact, if I were to quote a phrase, I would say, take a nod, meaning stand out. Trinidad took what was practically a law, of folklore, Lore, and brought it into a genre. Now, some people claim that Kaiso, Kaiso, was an expression in Africa and it came to the Caribbean. There is no empirical evidence of any genre in Africa then or now, and I'm not saying that because I read a book. I went to at least 9 countries in Africa, and particularly countries that have changed their names now, and we used to call the Gold Coast, where most of the enslaved Africans came from. So, Creole. Trinidad at one time, as history will tell us, was very underpopulated.
Yes.
That's when the Spanish was there.
Yes.
Some historians would say that Trinidad was between 2,500 to 300 inhabitants in a very large island.
You are telling
extremely large.
You are telling the truth there, because on about a year and a half ago, while in Trinidad, I went to the library and was researching some of the similar stuff, and it was underpopulated by the Spaniards at the time who controlled it. So you are right. Continue.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
Amis, avancez et prêtez l'oreille. C'est long, ça n'a pas dit qu'à dire. Remettez par Dieu la Africain esclavisé, Coréen enchaîné, qu'acclamer la liberté. Pour dire la vérité, à la colonie française, chantez, chantez, wow. Calypso is yours, my friend. Calypso is mine. Calypso is Caribbean. Sing it. Calypso is yours. Yours. Calypso is mine. Mine. Calypso is Caribbean. In English we say Calypso. In Creole, we dit Calypso.
All right. Yeah, Calypso for you guys there.
So your question is, Eric?
The argument that the Calypso actually came out of Martinique in particular, with the slaves who were coming there into Trinidad, and Trinidad developed this folk music into what we now know as Calypso. So they are making the argument that the foundation of Calypso is out of the French, Caribbean, Creole culture. Your thoughts?
I would encourage you to go and listen to a series I did called Caribbeana History in Song, where I took a look at 3 forms and that reflected the history of the music and developed its history: Calypso, reggae, and cadence music. Gordon Henderson was the one I interviewed a lot for the cadence music, because what they created at the time, what they called it, because of the Calypso influence, they call it cadence lipso. And they did some fantastic music. They were influenced by Shorty, who visited them a lot. And it was a tremendous outpouring that they gave us in the early days, you know. But to say that Calypso came from the French and the Caribbean, I think it's just a point of influence. Africa is known as the place where Calypso came from, according to J.D. Elder. What he said, there was a form called Kaiko, which is a question of storytelling in song. And when it came to the Caribbean, it changed. and the influence was a bit different. And so it continued time after time, developments occurred, you know. So Gordon and those guys did a lot. But I can't, the French and the mixture, the French and the Caribbean, yes, they because of the closeness and relationship. But I can't say that's where Calypso came from. You know, if you talk, you've got to go and talk to the old history bards of Calypso, and you will hear from them.
Yeah. The point is, Eric, is that the calypso, the core of the calypso developed from Africa. You cannot listen to a calypso out of Trinidad or out of Grenada, out of St. Vincent, and without thinking and hearing the strains of Africa. And African peoples came out of Africa throughout the Caribbean. And therefore, it is logical to think that the calypso or elements of the calypso, and you can't talk about calypso singular. You have to talk about calypso plural. So when you hear the French Caribbean music, the zouk
Right.
and all of that, it's calypso. If you hear it, the original songs in Jamaica, it's calypso.
Yeah.
Over the period of time in different islands, it took on a different kind of form and shape. And that's because of the people, the old Africans who were here originally, and how they moved it from island to island. That it developed in Trinidad and Tobago in its fullest form is without doubt. But you can't say that there wasn't calypso in the French-speaking islands. You listen. I've been to Suriname, and I hear some of the Surinamese music from those that are called the Bush Negroes, the people who went into the jungle and so on.
Right.
And the root is calypso, or what we call calypso or kaiso, but it is spread all over the place and by all kinds of things. And when you hear the story of a man called Grosjean, which I am sure everybody knows,
Yeah.
Grosjean was nothing if he was an African, and so that he developed his own thing here. And in some other island, you would have had the likes of Grosjean there also. So it's an African form that if we want to claim, and we should claim paternity and maternity for it, is that it developed at its strongest in Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad more than Tobago. And incidentally, the language, the French Creole language, came from the whole combination of the old French.
Right.
Remember, the Africans came here, and you had people from different parts of Africa speaking different languages, and so they created a language which all of them could understand, and they created it from their own dialects and from the French or the Spanish. All of them. If you look at the calypsos of the early 20th century, uh, as somebody, I think Eric said, is that the calypso's main form was in the Creole, as it's called in Dominica and St. Lucia, in Trinidad and the Patois. So yeah, I don't know. It will take a long time to explain all of that. But
Well, no, I
like
feel
Andrew Kahn and so on have developed
Right.
that argument.
I feel good to know that I interview you on your program. I feel accomplished.
All right. Yeah, I want to go back to George Mirage
Yeah.
because I'm very interested in how, and we're talking as big people, we're talking reality. An Indian out of San Fernando. What part of San Fernando?
That's the 40s, right by Pleasantville.
Right. Out of the Pleasantville area with Hindu parents. How you get in this calypso thing, by George?
Let me tell you something. Not only were my parents Hindus, they were Pandits.
Okay.
Okay. But the only music we could have heard home were Indian music. Not chutney, Indian music. From
Classical Indian music.
the classical Indian music. But they moved us to San Fernando from Chaguanas.
Okay.
And that's what the difference is. The neighbors had the radio that had the calypso.
Uh-huh.
And the other neighbor had calypso, and the other neighbor had calypso. So we used to macco the music from over there.
Yeah.
And that's all my brothers, all five of us, failed exam at one time. My mother called everybody and said, "You all failed. But you know Gina, Dinah, and Ben were Dick better than anybody else." So then so that's a story I like to tell. But to answer your question, when I went away in 1969 to New York, I went to school in New York, and to the Empire State Building, there was a computer school there, ECPI, and they asked everybody in the class what is the culture of the country they're from. And I said Diwali. Oh boy, the Indians killed me. I'm talking about the Indians from India.
Mhm.
So I went home and I got the only record I got on the same day I left to Trinidad, May 20th, 1969. More Sparrow More for 1969.
Yeah.
Boy, I went back to school and I said, Calypso is my culture. And I told everything and I did my research from 1969. And at that time, Eric could tell you, New York was a wave of Calypso at that time. Every store, Times Square, all over. So I started to buy up all the Houdini, beginner, artillery horn, executor, 78s. I kept on buying them all. And then in 1980, I decided to form my own library. So I went to Trinidad to find a place where I could research. And I couldn't find it, believe me. I walked all the way to Belmont, from Port of Spain to Belmont, the downtown Port of Spain. I couldn't find a library that had Calypso to research. So I built my own library. And ever since I adopted Calypso, and I had great support from my family.
I was just going to ask, did your parents come around and say, well, if you want to...
No, fully support.
Okay.
Every carnival, my mother used to tape on the radio, live, tape and VHS, videotape from the TV and the radio. That's why my archives are so full of the live Dimash of all those years. My mother did that when I could not come, or when I came late for the carnival. So I've been to carnival for over 50 years, 50 times.
So you convert your parents.
Boy, it looked like they convert me because my father used to be a stick fighter.
Uh-huh.
San Fernando Coquier. He
All
was in
right.
Tollgate. Fought against. My grandfather used to be a wrestler called the Cat.
Okay.
And at that time, the bongo drums, learned to beat the bongo drums. My father used to be small then, listen to them. He told me about Gorilla and some of these good Calypsonian chantwells.
Mm.
And Charles Grant was a Gorilla. I found out years later that he was lying. So he gave me stories about Calypsonians. He used to transport film as a part-time job in the night to cinemas. And he used to transport Calypsonians to sing. And he had 1 year, he transported a bunch of Calypsonians down south for 14, I think. And they wouldn't come out to sing. And Pretender was right in his face like this. The guy said, the manager said, it's time to sing. He said, no, nobody's singing. And my father's doing like this. Why? 2 cents is not enough. We'll take 10 cents. And he got 10 cents for everybody. So I got stories from my dad about Calypsonians. To me, Calypsonians are the greatest artists in the world. And when I see a Calypsonian now, I bow to them, I shake their hand, I buy them a beer, I buy them a roti, doubles, whatever I could. Because for what they do for us Trinidadians, nobody else would ever do.
Here's a question that might be difficult, George. Has Calypso been able to do a measure of integration between Africans and Indians in Trinidad?
I think so to a very small extent. Because the people I associate with in Trinidad and in Toronto have to be a calypso lover. The minute I hear you say, "Where's that you playing?" You're not my friend.
Okay.
Right? I believe that calypso is what made us. And to me, everybody I meet up here, man, woman, male or female, who been here for 60, 70 years, 50 years, and they hear calypso, they always say, "We are from Trinidad and Tobago. We're only from Trinidad. We love calypso. Calypso is our culture."
And everybody could whine, do a little whine down, right?
Boy, they try, but they get it. Eventually, they get it. You know? Yeah.
All right, time for a little bit of, I don't know, what you have, Eric, what you have on.
Well, I have the Gibraltar for you, so I can do that for you now.
All right, there we
Mikey
go.
Gibraltar. Sidney Benjamin.
Talking about Roy, the brown skin boy with the vamping like a Moroccoy. I'm talking about Roy, the brown skin boy with the vamping like a Moroccoy. From the time you see the fella land, everybody passes snow cone in hand. I say a new vice or they like to suck the ice, but I find out it's the president that stays in night. And the talk is, "Mister, give me one." I say, "No, give me one." Hold it up and down in the sun. If you see the crowd waiting for press, the whole of the tongue in a mess. Man sucking press, woman sucking press. If you see how the press wetting down the chest, bacchanalo, they're going home. Man, woman and child sucking, there's no cone, bacchanalo, they're going home. Man, woman and child sucking, there's no cone. No more pressing hand, no more can. Everybody love the sanitation. The sanitary cup, the two-tone syrup, is that have the Indian fella on top. So them vendors selling on the cart is the snow cone man that break the heart. With the electric machine crushing the ice. And everybody saying the snow cone nice. And the talk is, "Mister, give me one." I said, "Oh, give me one." Hold it up and down in the sun. If you see the crowd waiting for press, the whole of the tongue in a mess. Man sucking press, woman sucking press. If you see how the press wetting down the chest, bacchanalo, they're going home. Man, woman and child sucking, there's no cone, bacchanalo, they're going home. Man, woman and child sucking, there's no cone.
As they say, kaiso, kaiso.
Kaiso. The changing of the guard, as it were, from the press. There was a fella, I don't know if you all weren't in town to the football, but in the 60s, football in front of the grandstand, there was a fella called Colts who used to sell the two-tone press.
Yeah.
The juice running down your hand and thing. And Gibraltar saying, "We changed that, it's more hygienic it in the cup." Yes? Okay, so that's one. Anybody else have? We closing in on time, and I want to get to play as many of the inserts as possible. Eric, you have something?
Yeah, I did not send this one for Mr. Charles, but I think you can find it. It's Voice Own Way. If you could find that, the reason why this song, I would say, was the most popular song coming out of Trinidad for the diaspora, whereas whatever, Voice's Own Way, but it also ties into the very first clip from A.T. and Charles, where he's talking about the kind of work that these guys are doing, and I'm not sure if that song really had the impact in Trinidad, but our listeners had chosen this as the most popular song for them from Trinidad's Carnival.
don't know about you, but I come here to fetch. Come to play a mass. I'm not leaving until I wet. Come to play a mass. I don't live my life with regrets. No, I come to jam on a bumper. Come to drink all the liquor until my head gone and I'm miserable. All down on the ground, I'm causing trouble. Look how the security I watch me. They don't know about me. I just mash up the place and I defect like a jumpy. And to one way, they don't want me in their party. Yeah. They don't want me cause I'm too one way. They don't want me in their party. Yeah. I don't listen nothing to say. Every fat I throw, jumping up, doing what I want, jumping up. Tell them I ain't leaving, right there sleeping. Every fat I throw, jumping up, doing what I want, jumping up. Tell them I ain't leaving, right there sleeping. Sometimes I just really want cool myself, but I can't ease the tension. Too much affect and woman. They say I'm too out of control, but there's too much action. Somebody pour a next one until my head gone and I'm miserable. All down on the ground, I'm causing trouble. Look how the security I watch me. They don't know about me. I just mash up the place and I defect like a jumpy. And to one way.
Yes, he is a little too on way.
Yes, Eric. Anything you want to say about this one?
Yeah, the thing is, I think George was talking about the older calypsos, and one of the things that we have realized that I would like to get to argue is that a number of the young people are writing calypso lyrics with soca music. You know, if you take that voice song and tell me that it can't be Sparrow, Drunk and Disorderly, you know, there is structure, there's rhyme with reason as pretender teachers, and of course, as ATN said, these guys are bringing back live music into the sessions, not just synthesizers. You're actually hearing horn lines and bass lines inside of that piece of music. So I think that it's important that as the elders, you know, criticize soca, that they realize that there are some really good soca there and give those young people their flowers to encourage them.
Right. Vaughn, what about your piece?
Well, Ebony Eyes is a song. We do what we call carry jazz, a blend of jazz with calypso or reggae, that kind of flavor, you know. So let's listen to this one, Charles.
Hey, baby, I just want to let you know that I love and appreciate you, for real.
Baby, wind in your hair, sun on your skin, you're looking good, girl, all over again. Hey there, Miss Brown, want you to know I love you, baby. Hey. Brown as the sand, soft as the shore, leaving me hungry and crying for more. Baby, you're such a sport, and I want you to know that, baby. I love you, yeah, and I bet you didn't know that, girl. Didn't know that I need you, baby. Bet you didn't know that, Ebony Eye.
All right.
Yeah, a blend of musics there.
Right. You know, we found that the fusion of the various forms, you know, calypso and reggae and jazz, you know, gives it a sense of a good
some ballads inside there also.
Right.
So, gentlemen, we're going to conclude in a moment again. More than a moment, but I want to give each one of you an opportunity to talk about how your programming, whether it's of the current affairs type or whether it's strictly music, whatever it is, the achievements of Caribbean people. When, for instance, a Brian Lara or Dwight York or a Trinidad and Tobago or West Indian athletic team does well at an Olympics, how do these things impact on West Indians in Washington, in Toronto, in New York? Vaughn, you want to go first?
I think it does, what impacted me a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, I received an award from the station celebrating my 48th year broadcasting the program
Wow.
Caribbeana. And when I look back, and the irony about it, a lot of stuff, I have so much material that I need archived in an institutional way. So right now we're trying to get funding so we can get an establishment where young people can come and listen and read, because we are writing too, It can be a place where George's books can be available for people to read, and so forth. Um, and this is where we are heading and the direction that we are in. And it's a challenge, boy, um, hoping that government would have given us some help, and I'm talking about Trinidad government or Caribbean governments. I'm thinking of approaching CARICOM now because I think this is something worthwhile for the institutions need to look at what the contributions have been made by people like us and the impact it has made and to sustain it in a manner that you can go in just like a Schomburg library and see, I have a relative, somebody related to my family, Daphne Weeks. She was one of the founders of Labor Day Carnival, and she was a fantastic pianist. She played with Sir Lancelot and all these guys. And all her material, she's no longer with us, but her material is in Schomburg's library. So we want to see that our stuff need to be in some place like that. And this is where I'm heading and hoping and praying that one day that happens.
We are not very good at archiving material and valuing them in any significant way. My
Yeah.
good friend Teddy Pinero, Teddy was attempting. He was obviously coming down to the end, and he
Yes.
was attempting to give away his library to some institution that would keep it. I know George has had a similar kind of
Yes.
experience.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I don't know what happened to it in the end, but he tried in vain for many, many years to attempt to do something with this archive. I went to Teddy's house on a couple of occasions. There was hardly a place to sit.
Yeah.
Music was all over the place,
Same
everywhere that you could think about.
The
Eric
same.
St. Bernard.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Tony, in this new dispensation we're dealing with, and the audience, the mass audience that we look to reach, yes, we deal with mental health, and Lisa, my chef out of, Norway, talks about food and politics and current affairs. And, since I started the program, I've seen a 400% increase in listenership. And I got to give thanks to this guy they called Calvin Neal from Belize, who in 2023 put together a chat with about 14 people from different territories, Ras House out of Antigua and things like that. So these 14 people is like Vaughan paid, production department and who would bring information from throughout the different regions and share. But then we use what you might be very familiar with, the whole news concept of features are going to be a minute and a half, 2 minutes maximum, two and a half, to fit inside of the spaces of the music. So we do share information, we do have entertainment, and our tagline is connecting soca lovers around the world.
Yeah. Eric, I think you should have, off the program, you should have a chat with Sir Charles because, as you know, and I'm going to ask Sir Charles at the end of the program to come and give our listeners an appreciation. This is a venture that Sir Charles has started, and he will tell you all about it again. George Marat, your closing comment.
I my ultimate goal in Calypso collection, first to begin, let me answer your question about my collection. It has not gone to South Africa or Sri Lanka, as the people say, or anywhere. It is in Canada by my son. My son has acquired it, and he's doing the research to keep it. My collection is known to be one of the largest in the whole world, with over 7,000 Calypso records. Maybe the largest pan, chutney, well, Indian, Trinidadian, pan, parang records, vinyl records. And they are here. My ultimate goal is to form this Calypso museum where we could house Von Martin stuff. I've tried since 1980 with everybody, every government, nobody seemed to care. They love it, monsieur. The only person that really came out and showed me support to be done was Patrick Manning. But then, we know what happened to Mr. Pat. So, he's from San Luis like me. So, maybe I want to renew my goal to challenge the new government into forming this something they call the House of Music, the House of Calypso, where we could have the music of Trinidad and Tobago housed in the form of a museum and a research library where we could put stuff like Hazel Scott, Winifred Atwell, Von Martin, that year I played with Sir Lancelot, which is very intriguing to me. Gloria, somebody he said. And we need to get our music housed where we could listen to it or people could research. Where I couldn't find it in the early 80s, maybe now we could have it done. So it's not dead, it's there.
Yeah, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much, Von Martin, Erickson Bernard, and George Maraj, who you just heard, doing their thing up in the north, in different places of the north. But the message is the same, that the culture, Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, we have cultural artifacts, we have music and different kinds of things, and human value of great significance. So Charles is one of those persons who is attempting something through this station. Charlo, tell our participants and our listeners generally something about the station and the venture that you are attempting here.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to the gentlemen, all of you, for being, on this show today and for sharing so much. I've learned so much. The information is what you might call invaluable. So I thank you for being here. New Era TT Radio. It's a little bit of all that you guys have mentioned. So I will take the opportunity to reach out to you because, each of you have put something in there that I would like to use. So I will definitely make links with you guys. And people, you can listen to us on www.newerattradio.com. We are also on Facebook and YouTube, where we capture like shows like this. You can always go back and play it, and rewind it, fast forward it, get all the information, play it over and over again. So it's documented outside there for people to be able to have this kind of information. So I want to thank you guys very much. And thank you, Tony, for putting a show like this together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All the best, gentlemen. And thanks again.
You can take care, man. All right. See you next time. I want George and Eric are going to have you on the program one of these days, huh?
Just call.
Right. And you too, Tony. Yes. Well, you're all bad with us, So we do this. Okay.
All right. So, people, this has been your Drive Time Exchange right here on New Era TT Radio.